No one in the village said her name. Not because they didn't know it, but because saying it made her feel real. And real things could come closer. They spoke of her in lowered voices, in half-finished sentences, in warnings passed between doorways before sunset. Don't stay out too late. Lock the animals early. If you hear something in the woods, don't look. The stories changed depending on who told them. Some said she used to be part of a war band that slaughtered entire settlements. Others swore she was cursed, banished from her own kind for something so terrible even orcs wouldn't forgive it. A few claimed she wasn't even alive anymore. Just something that walked, something that watched. But all the stories agreed on one thing. She was dangerous. Elias had lived in that village long enough to hear every version, and long enough to notice something no one else seemed to question. No one had ever actually seen her do anything. The farm sat at the very edge of the village, where the fields gave up trying to be orderly and slowly surrendered to wild grass and crooked trees. It was the kind of place people passed quickly, if they passed at all. Elias preferred it that way. Less noise, fewer questions, more space for silence. He worked alone, like he always had. The rhythm of it didn't change: sunrise, soil, sweat, and the slow, steady work of keeping something alive in a world that didn't make it easy. By the time the sun dipped low, painting the fields in dull gold, most of the village had already retreated behind locked doors. Elias didn't. He leaned against the wooden fence, wiping dirt from his hands, watching the tree line in the distance. The forest started where the land stopped pretending to belong to anyone. Dark, dense, quiet in a way that felt deliberate. That's where they said she lived. Or waited. Or watched. A sound broke through the stillness. Not loud. Not threatening. Just wrong. Elias stilled. It came again. A soft rustle. Not the wind. Not an animal moving normally. Something slower. Careful. Like whatever made the sound didn't want to be heard. Most people would have gone inside. Closed the door. Pretended it wasn't there. Elias didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on the edge of the forest. A shadow shifted between the trees. Then stilled. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, she stepped forward. Not fully into the open. Just enough. Green skin, dulled by dirt and shadow. Broad shoulders, but thinner than he expected. Not the towering, unstoppable thing the stories described. She looked worn, like something that had been strong once, and had spent too long surviving instead of living. Her hair hung loose and uneven, like it had been cut with something dull or torn. Scars marked her arms, faint in the fading light, but there. Old, not fresh. Her eyes scanned the field. Not hunting, not searching for prey. Checking, watching, careful. Elias didn't move, didn't speak. He knew better than to startle something already on edge. She stepped 1 foot closer to the boundary where forest met field, then stopped. Her gaze shifted, landed on him, and everything in her body went still. Not aggressive, not ready to attack, just tense, like she was waiting for him to make the first mistake. Elias raised his hand slowly. Empty. A silent message. I'm not a threat. The wind moved between them, carrying the scent of earth and dry grass. She didn't respond, didn't relax, but she didn't run either. That was the first strange thing. Most creatures that lived in fear ran first, thought later. She just stood there, watching him the way someone watches a trap, trying to understand it before deciding whether to step closer or walk away. A long moment passed, then another. Then, she turned, not in panic, not in haste, just a quiet, deliberate step back into the trees. And then she was gone. The forest swallowed her like she had never been there at all. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The field felt bigger now, quieter, but not empty, not anymore. He looked at the place where she had stood, the place everyone feared, the place everyone avoided. And for the first time, he didn't see a monster. He saw something else, something the stories hadn't prepared him for, something that didn't fit. Not rage, not hunger, not danger, just distance. Like she wasn't part of the world anymore, like she had been pushed out of it and was still standing at the edge, unsure if she was allowed back in. Elias wiped his hands on his shirt and turned toward the house. The door creaked as he pushed it open. Inside, everything was the same. Table, chair, tools, silence. But something had changed. He felt it in the way his thoughts wouldn't settle. In the way the image of her, standing there, still, watchful, refused to fade. The village feared her. That much was clear. But fear, Elias had learned, wasn't always truth. Sometimes it was just easier. He glanced once more toward the dark window, where the forest waited beyond sight. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he knew this wasn't over. Not even close. The rain came without warning. It started as a whisper against the roof, soft, almost gentle, before turning into something heavier, steadier. By nightfall, the sky had swallowed the stars, and the world outside Elias's small farmhouse blurred into shadows and sound. Most people slept through nights like this. Rain made everything quieter, safer. It covered footsteps, washed away tracks, drowned out anything that might be watching from the dark. But Elias didn't sleep. He sat by the window, the lantern dim beside him, watching the storm roll across the fields like it had somewhere to be. The glass fogged faintly with each breath he took, and beyond it, the tree line flickered in and out of sight as lightning stitched brief moments of clarity into the night. He didn't know why he was still awake. Or maybe he did. His eyes kept drifting back to the same place. The edge of the forest. The place where she had stood. It didn't make sense. He had seen dangerous things before. Men, mostly. War left its marks in ways that didn't fade easily. And whatever lived in those woods, whatever she was, should have felt like a threat. But it didn't. That was what bothered him. A sudden flash of lightning split the sky. For a heartbeat, the world turned white. And in that heartbeat, he saw her. Not at the edge of the forest this time. Closer. Much closer. Elias stood up without realizing it. The chair scraped faintly against the floor, the sound swallowed by thunder. Another flash. There, just beyond the fence line. A shape in the rain. Still. Not moving. His chest tightened. He moved to the door. Stopped. Thought. Every instinct he had told him to stay inside. Close the door. Let the storm pass. Let whatever was out there remain out there. That was how people stayed alive. But something else, something quieter, deeper, pushed back against that instinct. Look. Elias opened the door. The wind hit him first, sharp and cold, carrying the weight of rain that soaked through his shirt in seconds. The ground was already turning to mud beneath his boots as he stepped out onto the porch. The world outside felt different at night. Smaller, tighter, like the darkness pressed in from all sides. He stepped off the porch slowly, his eyes fixed ahead. She was there. No mistake this time. Sitting near the broken stretch of fence, just far enough from the house to keep her distance, but not far enough to be hidden. Her back was turned slightly toward him, shoulders hunched, head lowered. Rain poured over her. She didn't move, didn't react, didn't even seem to notice. Elias took another step forward. Then another. Careful. Measured. He could see more now. The scars on her arms, clearer in the lightning. The uneven rise and fall of her shoulders. The way her hands were clenched in the dirt, like she was holding on to something that wasn't there. And then, he heard it. At first, he thought it was just the rain. But it wasn't. It was quieter than that. Fragile. Broken in a way that didn't belong to the storm. She was crying. Not loudly. Not in a way meant to be heard. The kind of crying that had been held back too long. The kind that slipped out when there was no one left to see it. Elias stopped where he was. Didn't move closer. Didn't speak. Because suddenly, it felt like stepping forward would be crossing something invisible. Something important. Another flash of lightning. Her face turned slightly. And for a second, he saw it. Not anger. Not rage. Just pain. Raw. Unhidden. The kind that didn't come from a single moment. The kind that built over years. She wiped at her face quickly, like she was angry at herself for letting it show. Her head turned. She saw him. And everything changed. Her body tensed instantly, like a wire pulled too tight. Her hands pressed into the ground, ready to push herself up, ready to run or fight. The tears stopped. Just like that. Gone. Hidden. Replaced by something harder. Something safer. Elias didn't raise his hands this time. Didn't make any sudden movement. He just stood there in the rain, letting it fall between them. I didn't mean to, he started, then stopped. The words felt wrong. Too small. Too late. She didn't respond. Her eyes stayed locked on him, sharp now, guarded. Watching. Always watching. Another moment passed. Then she moved. Fast. Not toward him. Away. She pushed herself to her feet and stepped back, putting distance between them in seconds. Her movements were precise, practiced, someone who had learned how to disappear long before she needed to. But she didn't run immediately. She hesitated. Just for a second. Long enough to look at him again. Really look this time. as if trying to understand something she hadn't expected. Then, she turned and vanished into the rain. The forest swallowed her whole. The sound of her footsteps disappeared almost instantly, lost beneath the storm. Elias stood there for a long time after she was gone. The rain didn't slow. The night didn't change. But something inside him had. He looked down at the ground where she had been sitting. The mud was disturbed. Finger marks. Deep. Like she had been gripping the earth to stay steady. To stay grounded. Elias exhaled slowly. His chest felt tight in a way he couldn't explain. Not fear. Not exactly. Something else. Something heavier. He turned back toward the house. The warmth inside hit him the moment he stepped through the door, but it didn't feel the same anymore. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt full. Full of something he couldn't ignore now. He glanced once more at the window. The rain blurred everything beyond it. But he knew she was still out there. Somewhere. Alone. And for the first time, the stories didn't matter. The fear didn't matter. Because monsters didn't cry like that. And whatever she wasn't what the village believed. Not even close. Morning came slowly, like the world wasn't sure it wanted to begin again. The storm had passed, but it left its mark behind. Mud thick in the fields, broken twigs scattered like bones, and a silence that felt heavier than the rain ever had. The sky hung low and gray, the kind of dull light that made everything look tired. Elias stood in his doorway, staring out at the place where she had been. The ground still held the shape of her. Faint now, softened by the drying mud. But there, proof that it hadn't been his imagination. Proof that what he saw last night was real. He stepped down from the porch, boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. The air smelled different this morning, cleaner, sharper, but underneath it, something lingered. Something unsettled. His eyes drifted again to the edge of the forest. Nothing moved. Nothing ever did, in daylight. That was the strange part. For all the stories, all the fear, all the warnings, she only ever appeared when no one else was looking. Like she knew. Like she understood exactly when the world was safest for her. Elias exhaled slowly and turned back toward the barn. Work didn't stop for thoughts. The animals needed feeding. The fence still needed fixing. The land didn't care what you'd seen in the night. And yet, his hands didn't move the way they usually did. Everything felt slower. Distracted. The image of her sitting in the rain, shoulders shaking, wouldn't leave him alone. He tried to push it away. Tried to bury it under routine. But it didn't go. It stayed. Quiet. Persistent. By midday, the sun broke through just enough to warm the ground, and Elias found himself back near the broken stretch of fence. The same place. He crouched down, studying the earth again. Her footprints were lighter now, almost gone. But he could still see where she had knelt, where her hands had pressed into the dirt, where she had stayed. Elias sat back on his heels, thinking, not about danger, not about the stories, about something else entirely. Hunger. The thought came sudden, clear, not his own, hers. She was thin. He hadn't noticed it at first, not really, but now that he thought about it, it stood out. The sharpness in her shoulders. The way her arms didn't carry the weight they should have. The way she moved, not weak, but careful, conserving energy, like someone who didn't always have enough. Elias stood slowly. This was a bad idea. He knew that. Every part of him that had learned how the world worked told him to walk away, to leave things as they were, because getting involved always cost something. But still, he found himself walking back toward the house. Inside, the air was still warm from the morning fire. The table sat where it always did, simple and worn, with just enough on it to get through another day. Bread. Not fresh, but good enough. A small piece of dried meat. Nothing special. Nothing extra. Just what he needed. Elias stood there for a moment, staring at it. Then he reached forward, picked it up, wrapped it in cloth. His hands moved before his thoughts could stop them. By the time he stepped back outside, the decision had already been made. He didn't go far, just to the edge of the field, to the place where the grass grew taller, where the land started to feel less like his and more like something shared with whatever lived beyond it. He set the bundle down near the fence. Not hidden, but not obvious either. Somewhere it could be found, without being a trap. Elias straightened, stood there for a second, then turned, and walked away. He didn't look back, didn't wait, didn't expect anything. Because this wasn't something you did expecting an answer. It was something you did because you couldn't not do it. The rest of the day passed slowly. Work filled the hours, but not his thoughts. Every sound pulled his attention. Every shift of wind made him glance toward the field. But nothing came. Not while the sun was up. It never did. By evening, the sky softened into gold again, and the shadows stretched long across the ground. Elias found himself standing at the window, watching, waiting. He didn't tell himself that's what he was doing. But he was. The light faded. The world quieted. And then, movement. There, near the fence. She appeared like she had the night before. Silent. Careful. Her steps were slow, deliberate, each one placed like she was testing the ground before trusting it. Her eyes moved constantly, scanning, measuring, always aware. She stopped a few feet from where he had left the bundle. Didn't touch it, didn't move closer, just watched it, like it might disappear, or worse, like it might be something else. A trap, a mistake, a lie. Elias stayed still, didn't move from the window, didn't make a sound. This wasn't his moment. It was hers. A long time passed, long enough for doubt to settle. Then, she stepped forward, slow, cautious. Her hand reached out, stopped, pulled back, then reached again. This time, she touched it, just the edge of the cloth. Testing, waiting. Nothing happened. No sound, no movement, no threat. Another second. Then she picked it up, quick, like she expected something to grab her the moment she did. But nothing came. She stepped back, eyes darting, watching the trees, watching the house, watching everything. And then, she opened the cloth. The smell must have hit her immediately, because her body stilled in a way Elias hadn't seen before. Not tense, not afraid. Something else, something softer. She stared at the bread, at the meat, like she didn't quite believe it was real. Then she looked toward the house, directly at his window. Elias didn't move, didn't hide. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Distance between them, silence between them, understanding somewhere in the middle. She didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't say anything, but she didn't run either. And that somehow meant more. She wrapped the food again, held it close, not greedy, not desperate, careful, like it mattered, like it wasn't something she could afford to lose. Then she stepped back, turned, and disappeared into the forest once more. Elias stayed at the window long after she was gone. The field looked the same, empty, quiet, but it didn't feel the same. Not anymore. Because now, there was something there that hadn't been before. Not fear, not distance, something smaller, something fragile, but real, trust. And Elias knew, as he stepped away from the window, that it was also the most dangerous thing he could have given her, and the most dangerous thing he could lose. The village started talking again. It didn't take long. Fear never stayed quiet for long. It just waited for something small to grow into something bigger. By the second morning after the storm, the stories had already changed. She was seen near the miller's barn. Tracks in the mud, too big for anything normal. Something took one of the chickens in the night. No one said her name. They didn't need to. Everyone knew who she was. Elias stood near the well in the center of the village, listening without looking like he was listening. The rope creaked in his hands as he pulled the bucket up, slow and steady, while voices carried across the square. "She's getting closer," one man muttered. "She was always close," another replied. "We just didn't see it." A woman shook her head. "This is what happens when you let things like that live too near people." Things. Not a person. Not even a creature. Just something. Elias said nothing. He lifted the bucket, poured water into his container, and turned away. Because there was nothing he could say. Not without becoming part of the story himself. And stories in this village didn't just spread. They stuck. The walk back to his farm felt longer than usual. Not because of the distance. Because of the weight. Every word he had heard settled somewhere in his chest, heavy and unmoving. They weren't afraid of her because they understood her. They were afraid of her because they didn't. And that made her easier to blame. By the time Elias reached the edge of his land, the world felt quieter again. The kind of quiet that didn't ask questions. The kind he trusted more than people. But even that quiet felt different now, like it was holding something back. He stepped into the field, his eyes drifting, almost without thinking, toward the place near the fence, where he had left the food. Nothing was there now. No cloth, no crumbs, no sign that anything had happened at all, except the ground. He crouched down, studying it. Faint impressions, light, careful, not the heavy, careless tracks of something wild. Steps placed with intention, avoiding soft patches, avoiding noise. She hadn't just taken the food. She had made sure she left nothing behind. Elias exhaled quietly. That wasn't instinct. That was practice. The thought lingered longer than he expected. He stood, brushing dirt from his hands, and turned toward the barn. Work again. Always work. It gave the mind something to hold on to. But it didn't hold him long. By late afternoon, a sound broke the rhythm. Sharp. Sudden. A crack of wood. Elias froze. It came again. From the far side of the field. Near the old storage shed, the one he barely used anymore. He moved quickly this time. Not rushing. But not slow either. Each step careful. Each breath controlled. When he reached the edge of the shed, he stopped. Listened. Nothing. Just wind. Then, movement. Behind it, Elias stepped around the corner and saw her. She wasn't standing. She wasn't watching. She was crouched low beside the shed, her back to the wall, one hand gripping the ground, the other pressed against her side. Blood, dark against her skin, fresh. She didn't notice him at first. Her focus was elsewhere, on the ground in front of her. A broken snare, the kind hunters set for small animals. The wire was snapped, twisted violently out of shape. Something had been caught there. Something strong enough to break free. Elias's eyes moved from the snare to her, and it didn't take long to understand. You did that, he said quietly. Her head snapped up. Fast. Too fast. Her eyes locked onto him instantly, sharp and dangerous, all softness from the night before gone. Her body shifted. Tension. Ready. Always ready. Elias didn't move closer. Didn't raise his hands this time. He just stood there, watching. You're hurt, he said. She didn't answer. Didn't look down. Didn't acknowledge it at all. But her hand pressed harder against her side. A small tell. A human one. Elias's gaze moved back to the snare. They set that for animals, he said. Still nothing. Then, a small movement. Her eyes flicked toward the forest. Then back to him. Quick. Measuring. Deciding. They set it for anything that bleeds, she said finally. Her voice was rough. Low. Not in used. Just careful. Like every word had to be chosen before it was allowed out. Elias nodded once. That includes you. Silence again. But it wasn't empty this time. It held something. Recognition. You shouldn't be here, she said. Not angry. Not threatening. Just a fact. Neither should you, Elias replied. That made her pause. Just for a second. Long enough to show something beneath the surface. Tiredness. The kind that didn't come from a single day. From too many. From too much. Her hand slipped slightly from her side. More blood. Not a lot. But enough. You need to clean that, Elias said. Her jaw tightened. I've had worse. I don't doubt it. Another pause. Longer this time. The wind shifted between them, carrying the faint smell of iron. Elias didn't step closer. Didn't push. He just stayed. Because he was starting to understand something important. She didn't run from danger. She ran from people. And right now, he was both. You helped me, she said suddenly. Elias blinked. What? The food, she said. You left it. Not a question. A statement. He nodded. Yes. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Why? The question came sharp. Direct. Like she didn't trust simple answers. Elias thought about it. Really thought. Then shrugged. You looked hungry. She stared at him. Like that answer didn't fit anywhere she expected. Like it was too simple to be real. That's it, she asked. That's it. Another silence. But this one felt different. Less sharp. Less guarded. Still careful. Always careful. But something had shifted. She looked down at the broken snare again. Then back at him. They'll say I took something, she said. They already are, Elias replied. That made her still. Doesn't matter what I do, she murmured. No, Elias said quietly. It doesn't. Her expression didn't change. But something in her eyes did. Not surprise. Not anger. Something deeper. Something closer to understanding. Elias stepped back then. Just one step. Giving her space. I'll bring cloth, he said. And water. Her body tensed again. You don't need to. I know, he cut in gently. A pause. Then, I will anyway. She didn't stop him. Didn't agree either. But she didn't leave. And that somehow was enough. As Elias turned and walked back toward the house, one thought settled clearly in his mind. The village feared her, blamed her, hunted her without ever knowing her. But standing there, seeing the snare, seeing the wound, hearing her voice, he realized something simple, something the stories had buried. She wasn't the danger. She was just living in a world that had already decided she was. Elias came back with more than he intended. Cloth, water, a small jar of salve he hadn't used in months. Things he told himself were practical, nothing more. Things anyone would bring for a wound. But as he stepped out of the house, he knew better. Not everyone would come back. Not everyone would choose this. The field stretched ahead of him, quiet under the late afternoon light. The air had shifted again, cooler now, carrying the faint edge of evening. He kept his pace steady, not slow, not rushed, because rushing meant fear, and fear made people unpredictable. When he reached the shed, she was still there. That surprised him. She hadn't moved far, just shifted her position slightly, leaning more against the wall now, her breathing shallow, controlled. Her hand was still pressed to her side, though the blood had slowed. Her eyes found him immediately, sharp, aware, but not as hostile as before. She watched the things in his hands, measured them, measured him. "You came back," she said. It wasn't disbelief. It was confirmation. Elias nodded once. "I said I would." That seemed to land somewhere with her. Not trust. Not yet. But something close to it. He stopped a few feet away. Close enough to help. Far enough to leave her a choice. "I'm going to set this here," he said, lowering the cloth and water onto a flat piece of wood beside the shed. Slow. Deliberate. Every movement visible. "I won't touch you unless you say so." Her gaze stayed on him, then flicked to the supplies. Then back again. "You think I can't handle it myself?" she asked. Her voice had an edge again. Not anger. Defense. Elias shrugged lightly. "I think you have been handling it yourself for a long time." A pause. Then, "That doesn't mean you should have to." Silence. Longer this time. The kind that wasn't empty, but heavy with things neither of them said. She looked down at her side. Her fingers shifted slightly. More blood seeped through. Not a deep wound, but deep enough. Messy enough. Dangerous, if left alone. "I've had worse," she repeated. Elias nodded. "I believe you." He didn't argue. Didn't push. Just stood there. And waited. That seemed to matter. More than anything he could have said. After a long moment, she moved. Slowly. Carefully. Her hand lifted from her side. Just enough to look. The cut ran along her ribs, jagged where the wire had snapped back. Not clean. Not kind. Her jaw tightened. Not from pain. From familiarity. Elias saw it. That recognition. That this wasn't new. That wounds like this were normal. "You're going to need both hands," he said quietly. Her eyes snapped up. "I said I can." "You can," he agreed. Calm. Steady. No challenge. "But it's harder one-handed." Another pause. Then, a small shift. She reached for the cloth. Not looking at him. Not acknowledging the help. But not refusing it either. Elias stayed where he was. Still. Silent. She poured water onto the cloth. The moment it touched the wound, her body tensed. Sharp. Instinctive. But she didn't make a sound. Didn't pull away. Just endured. Elias's hands clenched slightly at his sides. He knew that kind of silence. The kind that came from learning early that pain didn't change anything. That making noise didn't help. "Angle it lower," he said quietly. She froze. Not from the instruction. From him speaking. Then, slowly, she adjusted the cloth. The water ran cleaner this time, washing away the dirt, the dried blood. Less sting. More control. Her breathing steadied. Just a little. Elias watched her. Not the wound. Her. The way she moved. Careful. Precise. Like she had done this before. Many times. Too many. "You've done this before," he said. Not a question. She didn't answer immediately. Just kept working. Then, "Yes." The word was flat. Worn. Not proud. Not ashamed. Just true. Elias nodded. "That's not a good thing." Her hands stilled for a second. Then resumed. "No," she said. "It's not." The conversation stopped there. Didn't need more. After a while, she reached for the salve. Paused. Looked at it. "What is it?" she asked. "Helps keep it from turning worse," Elias said. "Infection." She studied it like she studied everything. Waited. Considered it. Then, carefully, applied it. Her fingers were rough. Scarred. Not just from time. From use. From damage. Elias saw it clearly now. Small breaks that hadn't healed right. Knuckles thicker than they should be. Movement just slightly off. Like her hands remembered something they weren't allowed to do anymore. He didn't comment. Didn't ask. But he saw. And something in his chest tightened. When she finished wrapping the cloth, her movement slowed. Not from hesitation. From exhaustion. The kind that crept in once the immediate danger passed. She leaned back against the shed. closed her eyes for just a second, then opened them again, never fully letting her guard down. You didn't have to do that, she said. Elias shrugged. I know. People don't usually, she trailed off. Didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Elias glanced toward the broken snare. People usually set traps, he said. Her gaze followed his, then returned to him. Yes, she said quietly. They do. Another silence. But this one felt different. Less sharp. Less heavy. Like something had eased. Just slightly. Elias stepped back, giving her more space again. You should rest, he said. She huffed faintly. Almost a laugh. Almost. Resting gets you caught, she replied. Not here, Elias said. She looked at him. Really looked. Longer this time. Like she was trying to understand something that didn't fit. You don't know that, she said. No, Elias admitted. Then, but I'm here. That landed. He saw it. In the way her shoulders dropped just a fraction. In the way her eyes didn't move away immediately. In the way, for the first time, she didn't look like she was about to run. Not yet. Not completely. But enough. And that was more than he expected. As Elias turned to leave, one thought stayed with him. Clear. Unavoidable. She wasn't just hiding a wound. She was hiding a life full of them. And somehow, that felt far more dangerous than anything the village believed. She didn't leave that night. That was the first thing Elias noticed. Not right away, but as the light faded and the air cooled, he realized something was different. The forest stayed quiet. No movement. No shifting shadows. No sign of her slipping back into the trees. Instead, she remained near the shed. Not close to the house. Not fully in the open. But there. Present. And that, somehow, felt bigger than anything that had happened before. Elias kept his distance. He worked through the last of the evening tasks slower than usual, aware of her without looking directly. The animals settled. The wind softened. The sky dimmed into deep blue. Still, she didn't go. By the time darkness fully settled over the field, Elias lit the lantern near the barn. Not too bright. Not too inviting. Just enough. A quiet signal. You're not alone. He didn't call out. Didn't approach. He just moved the way he always did. Steady, predictable, without sudden changes. Because he understood something now. Trust, for her, wasn't given. It was tested. In silence. In distance. In small moments that didn't demand anything in return. When he stepped out again later, she had shifted slightly. Closer to the edge of the shed. Closer to the light. Not by much, but enough. Elias leaned against the fence, arms resting on the worn wood, eyes on the horizon rather than on her. You're still here, he said. Not surprised. Just stating it. A pause. Then, yes. Her voice carried through the quiet. Softer than before. Less guarded. Still careful. Always careful. Elias nodded slightly. Leg holding up. It will. Another pause. The kind that felt like it could end there. But didn't. You didn't run, he said. This time, she didn't answer right away. Her fingers moved against the cloth wrapped around her side, adjusting it slightly. Thinking. I've been running for a long time, she said finally. Her voice had changed. Not just tired. Deeper. Like something underneath it had been pushed closer to the surface. Elias didn't interrupt. Didn't ask. He just waited. Because some things needed space. I thought if I kept moving, she continued slowly, they wouldn't catch up. A faint, humorless breath escaped her. They always do. Elias's jaw tightened slightly. He asked. A mistake. A small one. But enough. Her body stiffened. Not fully. But the shift was there. Walls. Rising again. Doesn't matter, she said. Flat. Closed. Elias nodded once. All right. He didn't push. Didn't try to reopen what she had just shut. That mattered too. Silence returned. But it wasn't the same as before. It wasn't empty. It was waiting. And after a while, she spoke again. They broke my hands. The words came out suddenly. Quiet. But heavy. Elias didn't move. Didn't react. But something inside him did. He turned his head slightly. Not fully toward her. Just enough. Her hands rested in her lap. Half hidden in shadow. They didn't want me to use them anymore, she said. Her fingers flexed slowly. Stiff. Controlled. They said I was making things I shouldn't. Elias's brow furrowed. What things? Another pause. Then, weapons. The word hung in the air. Cold. Sharp. I was good at it, she added. Not pride. Not exactly. Just fact. They used what I made. Fought with it. Won with it. Her voice dipped. They didn't like when I stopped. Elias exhaled slowly. And breaking your hands was supposed to fix that? Yes. No hesitation. No emotion. Just truth. They did it one finger at a time, she said. Her gaze didn't leave her hands. Made sure I understood. Elias's grip tightened on the fence. Wood creaked slightly under his fingers. They left me after, she continued. Thought that would be enough. She looked up then. Not at him. Past him. Like she was seeing something far away. It wasn't. Silence fell again. But it was heavier now. Full. Elias didn't know what to say. There wasn't anything to say. Not something that would matter. So he didn't try. They called me dangerous, she said after a while. Her eyes flicked toward him. Sharp again. But I wasn't dangerous when I was making their weapons. The words landed harder than anything else she had said. Elias nodded slowly. That's how it works, he said. Her expression shifted. Slightly. You've seen it before. Different kind, Elias replied. But yeah. Another pause. Shorter this time. You don't look at me like they do, she said. Not a question. Elias shrugged lightly. I see what's in front of me. And what's that? He glanced at her. Really looked this time. At the scars. The tiredness. The way she held herself like the ground could disappear if she trusted it too much. A person, he said. Simple. No hesitation. No weight added. Just truth. She stared at him. Longer than before. Searching. Testing. Waiting for something behind the words. But there was nothing there. No angle. No trap. Just that. A person. Her gaze dropped. Back to her hands. They said I wasn't, she murmured. Elias leaned back against the fence. They were wrong. The wind moved through the field again. Soft. Steady. Carrying the quiet between them. For the first time since he had seen her. She didn't look like she was bracing for something. Didn't look like she was waiting for the moment everything turned. She just sat there. Breathing. Existing. Not hiding. Not running. Not fighting. And that might have been the most dangerous thing of all. Because it meant she was starting to believe. Even just a little. That she didn't have to. Elias stared out into the darkness beyond the field. But his thoughts stayed with her. With the stories she hadn't fully told. With the parts she had. And one thing settled clearly in his mind. The village feared her because they thought she was dangerous. But the truth was far simpler. She had survived people who actually were. And that made her something the world didn't understand. Something it would rather destroy than learn from. And Elias knew. This wasn't just a story about fear anymore. It was about what happened. When someone finally stopped running. The village didn't wait for proof. It never did. Fear didn't need proof. Just something to point at. By the third morning, it had grown teeth. Elias heard it before he saw it. Voices. Louder than usual. Not the quiet murmurs by the well or the low warnings traded between neighbors. This was different. This was anger. He stepped out of the house, the early light still pale across the fields, and saw them gathering at the edge of the road. Not everyone, but enough. 5 men at first, then more. Tools in their hands. Axes, pitchforks, anything that could be turned into something else if needed. Weapons, without calling them that. Elias's jaw tightened. He didn't need to ask why. They're coming, she said behind him. He turned. She was already standing near the shed, her posture different now. Not resting. Not recovering. Ready. Always ready. Her eyes were on the road. Counting. Measuring. How many, he asked. 8, she replied. More behind. Elias nodded slowly. They won't stop at 8. No, she said. Silence stretched between them for a second. Then, I'll leave. The words came fast. Too fast. Like she had already decided. Like this wasn't new. Elias shook his head. No. Her eyes snapped to him. You don't understand. I do, he cut in. They're scared. And scared people don't think. That's exactly why I need to go, she said sharply. If I stay, they'll what? Elias stepped closer now. Blame you for something they've already decided is your fault. Her jaw tightened. Yes. Then leaving won't change that. That hit. He saw it. In the way her shoulders stiffened. In the way her eyes flicked away for just a second. They'll follow, she said quietly. They always do. Elias exhaled slowly. Then we deal with it here. Her gaze snapped back. You don't deal with things like this, she said. You survive them. Same difference, he replied. No, she said, her voice dropping. It's not. The voices grew louder. Closer now. Boots on dirt. Metal against wood. The kind of sound that carried intention. Elias stepped forward. Past her. Toward the edge of the field. She watched him go. Didn't follow. Not yet. 8 men came into view first, just like she said, then more behind them. Not a mob. Not yet. But close enough. The man in front, broad, thick-armed, someone Elias recognized from the village center, stopped when he saw him. His eyes narrowed. "Thought we'd find you out here," he said. Elias crossed his arms loosely. "Morning to you too." The man didn't smile. "You know why we're here." "I can guess." "Then you know what we want." Elias glanced back briefly. She hadn't moved. Still near the shed. Still watching. Then he looked forward again. "No," he said. "I don't." That stirred them. A shift in the group. Frustration. "That thing's been lurking near the village," another man said. "Animals gone. Tracks everywhere." Elias raised an eyebrow slightly. "Funny," he said. "I haven't lost anything." "That's because it's feeding somewhere else," the first man snapped. "Or maybe something else is," Elias replied. That didn't go over well. Voices rose. Anger sharpened. "You're protecting it," someone muttered. Elias didn't deny it. Didn't confirm it either. He just stood there. And that was enough. The first man stepped forward. "You're alone out here, Elias," he said. "Always have been. Makes it easy not to see what's dangerous." Elias met his gaze evenly. "Or maybe it makes it easier to see what isn't." That did it. The line was drawn. The man's grip tightened on the tool in his hand. "We're not asking," he said. "We're making sure." Elias didn't move. "Then you better be sure." A pause. Short. Sharp. Then, movement behind him. She stepped forward. Not fast. Not hidden. Deliberate. The moment they saw her, everything changed. The noise stopped. Like someone had cut it clean out of the air. All eyes turned. Locked. Fear. Real fear this time. Not stories. Not rumors. Reality. She stood a few steps behind Elias. Not hiding, but not fully exposed either. Balanced. Ready. Her gaze moved across them. Counting. Always counting. "They came for me," she said quietly. Elias didn't turn. "Looks that way." Her voice shifted. "Harder now. You should step aside." He shook his head. "No." A pause. "You don't win this," she said. "Maybe not." Another pause. "Then why?" "Because it matters," Elias said simply. That stopped her. Not them, but her. The man in front took another step. "That thing's not your problem," he said. Elias finally turned his head slightly. "Looks like it is." "She's not human." Elias shrugged. "Neither are you right now." That hit harder than expected. A ripple through the group. Not agreement, but something close. Uncertainty. The man's jaw tightened. "We're ending this." He stepped forward. And that was the moment everything could have broken. But she moved first. Not toward them. Toward Elias. Close enough now that he could feel the tension in her body. The readiness. The instinct to fight. To survive. Her voice came low. Only for him. "I won't let them take me." "I know," Elias said. "And I won't stop if they try." "I know." A breath. Then move. Elias didn't. Didn't step aside. Didn't back away. He just stood there. Between her. And them. And for the first time, the village saw something they hadn't expected. Not just her. But him. Standing there. Choosing. And that choice made everything more dangerous. Because now, this wasn't just about fear. It was about sides. And once sides were chosen, there was no going back. No one moved first. That was the strange part. For all the noise, all the anger, all the fear that had driven them out of the village and into Elias's field, when it came down to it, they hesitated. Because now it wasn't a story anymore. It wasn't whispers or tracks in the mud or something unseen moving through the dark. She was right there. Real. Watching them. And Elias stood in front of her like that meant something. Like it mattered. The man at the front shifted his grip on the axe. "You're making a mistake," he said. Elias didn't respond. Didn't look away. Didn't move. The silence stretched. Too long. Too tight. Something had to break. And it did. Not with a shout. Not with a charge. With a single step. One of the men on the side, nervous, young, too eager to prove something, lunged forward. Not toward Elias. Toward her. Everything happened at once. She moved before the rest of them even understood what had started. Fast. Faster than Elias had seen before. The careful, measured movements, gone. Replaced by something sharper. Older. Instinct. Her hand snapped out, catching the man's arm mid-swing. The force of it twisted him off balance, his weapon dropping uselessly into the dirt. She didn't strike back. Didn't retaliate. She just shoved him away. Hard enough to send him stumbling. Hard enough to make a point. A warning. The line had been crossed. And now, there was no going back. Stop, Elias shouted. But it was too late. The moment had shattered. Fear turned into action, and action turned into chaos. Two more men surged forward, this time together, not thinking, just reacting. She stepped back, her injured side slowing her just enough to matter. One of them swung wide, clumsy, desperate. She ducked under it, her shoulder grazing the blow, her breath catching sharply. Pain. But she didn't stop. She never stopped. Elias stepped in then. Between them. Not graceful, not trained, but solid. He caught one of the men by the shoulder and shoved him back hard, breaking the rhythm of the attack. Enough, he barked. The word cracked through the noise. But not all of it stopped. The second man swung again. Too fast. Too wild. Elias barely turned in time. The blow clipped his arm. Not deep, but enough. Enough to sting. Enough to remind him. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was real. Behind him, she moved again. Not retreating. Not running. Standing. Her breathing was heavier now. Controlled, but strained. Her eyes moved across them. Counting. Always counting. Too many. Too close. Too unpredictable. She could fight. Elias knew that now. But she couldn't fight like this. Not surrounded. Not injured. Not with people who didn't understand when to stop. Back off. Elias shouted again. This time, something shifted. Not fully, but enough. The older man stepped forward, raising a hand. Hold. The word cut through. Not loud, but commanding. The others hesitated. Pulled back slightly. Not out of mercy. Out of uncertainty. The man's eyes moved between Elias and her. Assessing. Recalculating. This isn't how this was supposed to go, he muttered. No, Elias said. It's not. The man looked at the younger one who had started it. Then at the rest. Then, at her. Really looked. And for the first time, there was doubt. She didn't strike first, someone said quietly. It wasn't Elias. It wasn't her. It came from the group. A crack. Small. But there. She pushed him, another added. That's all. That's not the point, the first man snapped. It is, Elias said. The man turned to him sharply. Elias stepped forward. Not aggressive. Not threatening. But steady. You came here expecting a monster, he said. So you acted like you found one. Silence. She didn't attack you, Elias continued. You attacked her. That thing is a person, Elias cut in. The words hit harder than the earlier ones. Because now, they had seen it. Not just heard it. Seen it. The way she moved. The way she held back. The way she didn't turn the fight into something worse. The man's grip on his axe loosened slightly. Just a fraction. But enough. She's dangerous, he said. So are you, Elias replied. Another pause. Longer. Heavier. The kind that forced people to think. Something they hadn't come here to do. Behind Elias, she stood still. Not speaking. Not moving. But not hiding either. And that mattered. More than anything. The man exhaled sharply. We can't just ignore this, he said. I'm not asking you to, Elias replied. Then what? Elias didn't answer right away. He glanced back at her. At the blood seeping faintly through the cloth. At the tension still holding her upright. At the fact that she was still standing. Still choosing not to run. Then he looked forward again. You go back, he said. You think. A scoff. That's it. That's more than you've done so far. That landed. Not clean. Not easy. But real. The man looked at the others. Saw the hesitation. The doubt. The cracks. And he knew. This wasn't going to end the way he planned. Not today. He stepped back. Slowly. Fine, he said. For now. Not surrender. Not peace. Just pause. He pointed at Elias. This isn't over. I know, Elias replied. The group began to pull back. Not turning their backs. Not relaxed. But retreating. Step by step. Until the field was theirs again. Silence returned. But it wasn't the same. It never would be. Elias let out a breath. Slow. Controlled. Then he turned. She was still there. Watching the place where they had stood. Her shoulders still tight. Her body still ready. They'll come back, she said. Yes. They'll bring more. Probably. A pause. Then, you should have let me go, she said. Elias shook his head. No. Her eyes flicked to him. Sharp. Questioning. Why, she asked. Elias looked at her. At everything she had held back. Everything she hadn't done. They needed to see, he said. See what? He didn't hesitate. That you didn't break. The words settled between them. Quiet. Heavy. True. She looked away. Back toward the forest. The place she could have run. The place she almost had, but didn't. And for the first time, she didn't move toward it. Not yet. Not this time. Because something had changed. Not just in the village. Not just in the field. In her. And in him. The night hadn't broken everything. But it had broken enough. Enough for the truth to start showing through. And once that happened, there was no hiding it again. The field didn't return to normal. Not after that. Even when the sun rose the next morning, even when the wind moved through the grass like it always had, something remained. Something unseen, but felt. A line. Not drawn in the dirt. Drawn in people. Elias felt it the moment he stepped outside. The air carried tension now, like a storm that hadn't decided whether to break or pass. She was already awake, sitting near the shed again, her back against the wood, eyes open but distant. The bandage at her side was darker now, but not worse. Healing, slowly. Surviving like always. You didn't sleep, Elias said. She didn't look at him. I don't much. He nodded once. Fair. A pause. Then, they'll come back today, she said. Not fear. Certainty. Elias leaned against the fence, scanning the road in the distance. Yeah, he said. I figured. Another silence. But this one wasn't empty. It was waiting. Time stretched. Minutes passing slower than they should. Until movement. At the far end of the road. More this time. Not just a handful. A group. 10, maybe more. Walking together. Not scattered like before. Organized. Elias exhaled slowly. They brought more, he muttered. She stood. Carefully. Her body still stiff, still sore, but ready. Always ready. Her eyes moved across the approaching figures. Counting. 11, she said. A beat. 2 with bows. Elias glanced at her. You always do that. Yes. Another pause. Then, you should go inside, he said. Her head turned sharply. No. This could get worse. It always does. That's not what I mean. Her jaw tightened. I'm not hiding. Elias studied her for a second, then nodded. All right. He didn't argue. Didn't try to convince her otherwise. Because he understood now. She had hidden long enough. The group reached the edge of the field. Stopped. Not rushing in this time. Not chaotic. Deliberate. The man from before stepped forward again. Same stance. Same weight in his eyes. But something else now too. Less certainty. More caution. You had your chance, he said. Elias crossed his arms. So did you. That stirred something in the group. A ripple. Not anger. Not fully. Something closer to discomfort. The man ignored it. This doesn't end with her staying here, he said. Then how does it end? Elias asked. With her gone. A pause. Elias glanced back at her. Then forward again. No. The word was simple. Final. The man's jaw tightened. You're choosing this, he said. Elias shrugged slightly. Looks like. Silence stretched. Then, she's not what you think, Elias said. A few scoffs. A few uneasy shifts. That's what you believe, someone muttered. No, Elias replied. That's what I've seen. The man shook his head. You've seen what she wants you to see. Elias almost smiled. Then she's doing a terrible job of being dangerous. That landed. Not clean. But it landed. A man in the back spoke up. She didn't attack yesterday. Another voice. She could have. She didn't. The cracks widened. Small. But spreading. The leader noticed. His eyes moved across his own group now. Measuring. Recalculating. This isn't about what she's done, he said louder. It's about what she is. And there it was. The truth. Not actions. Not proof. Just fear of what she was. Elias shook his head. That's not enough. It is for us. It shouldn't be. The tension snapped tight again. Then, she stepped forward. Not behind Elias. Beside him. That changed everything. The group went still. Again. Because this time, she wasn't being defended. She was standing. Choosing. I'm not leaving, she said. Her voice carried. Clear. Steady. No hesitation. You don't get to decide that, the man snapped. I already did. A beat. You think standing there changes anything? He asked. Yes. No hesitation. Again. Her eyes moved across them. Not challenging. Not threatening. Just present. You're afraid of me, she said. No one answered. They didn't need to. It was obvious. I know why, she continued. Her voice softened. Just slightly. They made sure of that. Confusion flickered across a few faces. What are you talking about? Someone asked. She lifted her hands. Slowly. Let them see. The scars. The damage. The way her fingers didn't move quite right. They broke these, she said. A murmur. Uneasy. They told me I was dangerous. A pause. Not because I hurt people. Another pause. Because I stopped helping them do it. Silence fell. Heavy. Real. The kind that couldn't be brushed away. They called me a weapon, she said. Her voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. And when I refused to be one, they tried to break me instead. No one spoke. No one moved. Because now, they weren't looking at a story. They weren't looking at a monster. They were looking at someone who had been used, then discarded. The man in front shifted, his grip loosening, just slightly. That doesn't change what you are, he said. Her eyes met his. No, she said. It doesn't. A pause. Then, but it should change what you see. That was the moment. Elias felt it. The shift. Not full, not complete, but real. A man in the back lowered his tools slightly. Another looked away. The certainty was breaking. The leader saw it too, and he didn't like it. This changes nothing, he said again. But his voice didn't carry the same weight, didn't land the same way, because now there was doubt, and doubt was dangerous. He stepped back, not retreating, not fully, but enough. This isn't over, he said. Elias nodded. I know. The group didn't move immediately. Some stayed, some shifted, some looked at her, really looked. Then, slowly, they began to leave. Not all at once, not together, but in pieces, breaking apart, the line dissolving, until only a few remained. Then fewer. Then, none. The field fell quiet again. But this time, it wasn't tension. It wasn't waiting. It was something else. She exhaled. Slow. Controlled. Her shoulders dropped slightly. They didn't believe me, she said. Elias shook his head. They didn't need to. She looked at him. Then what changed? Elias glanced toward the empty road. Then back at her. They heard you. A pause. That's different. She considered that. Quiet. Then, a small nod. Not relief. Not victory. But something close. Understanding. She looked down at her hands again. Flexed her fingers. Slow. Careful. They didn't break, she murmured. Elias followed her gaze. No, he said. They didn't. Silence settled. Soft this time. And for the first time, the line between them and the village didn't feel as sharp. Still there. Still real. But thinner. Weaker. Like something that could change. And maybe, for the first time, it already had. The quiet didn't last. It never did. By the third morning, the farm had settled into something almost ordinary again. Almost. The animals needed feeding. The fence still leaned where the storm had pushed it weeks ago, and the well rope groaned the same tired sound every time Elias pulled water. Life had a way of continuing, even when something inside it had shifted forever. But Elias noticed it. The way she moved now. Not just careful. Present. She worked beside him without being asked, hauling water, stacking wood, fixing small things with a precision that didn't match her injured hands, but somehow worked anyway. She didn't talk much, but the silence between them had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It held something. Trust, maybe. Or the beginning of it. You're favoring your left side, Elias said one morning as she lifted a bucket. I'm not, she replied. You are. A pause. Then, it's healing, she added quietly. Elias didn't push further. He had learned that already. Some truths came when they were ready, not when they were asked for. By midday, the sky had turned gray. Clouds rolling in thick and low, pressing down on the land like something heavy. The wind picked up, not strong, but steady, carrying the scent of rain and something else beneath it. Something off. Elias felt it before he understood it. That same feeling from before. The one that meant trouble wasn't coming. It was already close. He straightened slowly, eyes scanning the tree line. What is it? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. Then, not sure yet. She followed his gaze. Her body stilled. Not tense. Not afraid. Ready. Always ready. The first sound came moments later. Hooves. Not many, but enough. Different from before. Slower. Measured. Not a group coming to threaten. A group coming with purpose. They're not from the village, she said. Elias glanced at her. How do you know? A pause. Then, I remember how they move. That was enough. The figures emerged from the trees. 3 of them. Mounted. Larger than the villagers. Stronger. And something about the way they held themselves. Not uncertain. Not reactive. Certain. Controlled. Dangerous in a different way. Elias felt his grip tighten around the tool in his hand. She stepped slightly forward. Not behind him. Not beside him. Ahead. That made his chest tighten. Hey, he said quietly. You don't have to. Yes, she replied. Simple. Final. The riders stopped just short of the field. One of them dismounted. Slowly. Deliberately. He was older. Scars marked his face and arms. Not wild or chaotic, but precise. The kind that came from experience, not recklessness. His eyes found her immediately, and didn't move. For a long moment. No one spoke. Then, there you are, he said. Her entire body went still. Not from fear. From recognition. Elias felt it. The shift. Different from the villagers. This wasn't suspicion. This was history. You shouldn't have come, she said. Her voice was steady, but quieter than before. The man tilted his head slightly. You shouldn't have left. Silence fell heavy across the field. Elias stepped forward, just enough. Who are you? He asked. The man didn't look at him. Not even for a second. She belongs to us, he said. Elias's jaw tightened. She's not an object. That got his attention. The man's eyes flicked toward Elias briefly. Measured him. Dismissed him. Then returned to her. You've caused complications, he continued. Her lips pressed together. I'm not going back. Not hesitation. Not even a flicker. The man sighed. Not angry. Not surprised. Like someone hearing an answer they already expected. You don't have a choice. Elias stepped fully beside her now. Yes, she does. The two other riders shifted. Hands near weapons. Not drawn, but ready. The man finally looked at Elias properly. Studied him. Not like the villagers had. Not with fear. With calculation. You don't understand what you're involving yourself in, he said. Elias shrugged slightly. Seems like I do. No, the man replied. You don't. A pause. Then, she's not just one of us, he said. Elias glanced at her. She didn't look at him. Didn't confirm. Didn't deny. The man continued. She was trained, he said. Forged for something specific. The word hung in the air. Forged. Not raised. Not taught. Forged. Elias felt something twist in his chest. He looked at her hands. The scars. The damage. They tried to turn me into a weapon, she said quietly. Her voice cut through everything. Clear. Sharp. They succeeded, the man replied. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Elias shook his head. No, he said. The man's gaze snapped to him. You're wrong. Elias stepped slightly in front of her now. Not blocking, but standing. She chose not to be one, he said. That doesn't erase what she is. No, Elias replied. It doesn't. A beat. But it changes everything. The man's eyes narrowed. You think choice matters where we come from? Elias didn't hesitate. Yeah, he said. I do. The wind picked up. Stronger now. Carrying dust across the field. The tension snapped tight. Then, she's coming with us, one of the riders said. Impatient. Rough. The older man lifted a hand slightly, silencing him. His gaze remained on Elias. You're standing in the way of something you can't stop, he said. Elias nodded. Probably. A pause. Then, still standing. That changed something. Not in the riders. In her. Elias felt it beside him. A shift. Small, but real. The man saw it too. His jaw tightened. Last chance, he said. To what? She asked. To come willingly. She looked at him. Really looked. Not as an enemy. Not as someone to fear. But as something she had already left behind. No, she said. Simple. Final. The silence that followed felt different from before. Not uncertain. Not shifting. Settled. The man exhaled slowly. Then, so be it. The two riders behind him moved. Weapons drawn. Fast. Efficient. This wasn't like the villagers. This wasn't hesitation. This was action. Elias barely had time to react. She moved first. Not wild. Not reckless. Precise. Even with injured hands. Even with pain. Her body remembered what they had made her, and what she refused to be. But survival. That was something she hadn't let go of. The first rider swung. She stepped aside. Too fast. Too clean. Elias grabbed a wooden post, swinging it hard into the second rider's arm before the blade could fall. A grunt. A stumble. The fight wasn't long. It didn't need to be. Because this wasn't a battle. It was a message. And the message had already been sent. The older man raised his hand again. Enough. The riders stopped. Breathing hard. Weapons still in hand. But no longer advancing. The man looked at her. Long. Hard. You've changed, he said. She met his gaze. No, she replied. I just stopped obeying. A pause. Then, "We'll return," he said. Not a threat. A promise. Then he turned, mounted his horse. The others followed. And just like that, they were gone. The field fell silent again. But this time, it wasn't relief. Elias exhaled slowly. "They're not like the others," he said. "No," she replied. "They're not." A pause. Then, "They won't stop." Elias nodded. "I figured." He looked at her. Really looked. Not as someone he saved. Not as someone hiding. But as someone standing in the middle of something much bigger. "Then I guess we don't either," he said. She studied him. Long. Careful. Then, for the first time, a faint, almost invisible expression crossed her face. Not quite a smile, but close. And for the first time since they met, she didn't look like she was surviving. She looked like she was choosing. And that was far more dangerous. For everyone who came next.